Yeah, and I don't reckon it's got much sugar in it either.
Chris? Hey, can you give us a quick sound test? We're online on both of them now. Chris, both of your mics are on. Just
Yep.
alrighty, guys. We're just doing a quick sound test, and then we'll be with you. Alrighty. Drop a comment if you can hear us. You have a question. On both?
On TikTok as well?
Yep. Yep. Cool. Cool. Alright, you're all good. Alrighty, guys. How you feeling today, Chris?
Great.
Great.
Yeah.
We're on time.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm excited to be on time.
yeah?
Yeah.
Looks like we've got some sexy plants coming in.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Yeah.
So, start by telling me why you're excited today.
Actually, I think the subject today is a thing that really interests me because you get lots of people that have got they've done a knockdown rebuild, they've got a new block of land, they've bought themselves a farm and they're going to build a house on it.
Okay.
And they've got a large vacant space and they want to transform it. And some plants, you plant them, they struggle, they don't really grow. But
hi, Ifkar. How you doing?
There's other plants that you can plant, and in no time at all, you can have a settled in, mature looking garden just almost overnight. And it's really good fun to get into a property and transform it quickly. And also, what I'm focusing on today is the situation where you might have a large vacant space and you need a lot of plants to transform it, so price becomes an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you need a lot of plants, you've really got to watch those individual prices. So the sort of thing I'm going to be talking about today is the sort of thing where anybody could afford to transform an area, transform it really quickly, make it look established, make it look great, almost overnight.
Yeah, because that's a common problem a lot of people have, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's speed and cost is, I guess, the issues.
We haven't talked about which plants yet, Lisa, but keep watching and you'll find out. Just before we move on, we'll answer this question while some more people are coming in. Instigate Love asks, will zoysia survive with 3 hours sunlight in winter and 6 hours in summer? Yep. Bang on. Yep. There you go. Yep. In Queensland too. Awesome.
Queensland, twice as good.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Anything will live in Queensland, right?
Well, the zoysia loves that sort of humid tropical. The zoysia, like before I really started selling zoysia in Melbourne, I put it out. I grew some out the back because I'd heard that it died off in the cold.
Yep.
And I put it out the back in the coldest part of the nursery, and it went through fine. It discolors a little bit in Melbourne in the winter. But basically, it'll as soon as it warms up, it turns dark green and gets growing again. It goes, and the area where I've got it is quite a frosty little pocket.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, cool. She also asked, will maroon hibiscus beat blue petals again? Does that make sense?
No.
Maybe rephrase that question there, Instigate. Don't know. Anyway, if you have a question, let us know and come back to us. you're not in the frame. Yeah. All right, Chris. Go for it. Let us know what
Okay,
you.
so let's get into it. Um, there's
Oh,
different.
she's asking about the football. She's asking about Queensland versus New South Wales.
Right.
I don't think Chris follows football. Do you?
Yeah, I hate football.
Oh.
That's the simple thing, because what happens is for years and years and years they had the footy here in Melbourne, and they only used to play on a Saturday. And during the footy season, you could let off a cannon in the nursery on a Saturday. There wouldn't be a soul there. You're paying wages. And so I grew to hate football just because it emptied my nursery every Saturday. But I kind of like football better now because they do it at all different times and often at night time. And so we still have customers on a Saturday when the footy season's on. So I don't mind football as much as I used to hate it, but now I don't mind it so much.
Well, Alex says footy is tanked, so I think he stands with you.
Right.
Good luck with that, Instigate.
Okay. So let's start talking about some different plants. This one here is a Leighton's green cypress, and it looks a very innocent little plant. But what's interesting about this is an interspecies hybrid, and in the horticultural world, that means two different species were crossed, and this was an Alaskan cedar. An accidental cross occurred between an Alaskan cedar and a Californian cypress, or a Monterey cypress. And what you got is you got enormous vigor in this one, and the best I've ever seen. I used to sell these in little tiny pots to farmers by the thousand many years ago, and I had one farmer buy a smaller plant than this and grow it 7 meters in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and had a look at his hedge that he grew a whole row of them, and it was in great country. It was in Leongatha. He had good soil, good rainfall. So if you're in harder country, you won't do quite that good. But 7 meters in 3 years is absolutely phenomenal for a cypress tree. Mm. So you can grow, with something like this, you could grow a 2 meter hedge in under 2 years. You'd plant them about 1.2 meters apart. So if you wanted to block off your place from the road, and these are great because they end up with all thickly stacked foliage, and they're quite heavy and quite solid. So they actually block sound. They capture the dirt, and so if you're on a dirt road or a noisy, busy road, these are the best thing around. But the thing is that they're a great property transformer. Tall, 4 or 5 meter screen. Do it in 3 years if you look after it. 4 years maybe if you're not looking after it so good. A 2 meter one in under 2 years. So and a very, very useful, hardy, wind hardy, heat hardy. They do need, like if you're in an area, say like Shepparton, you do need a little bit of summer irrigation on them. But and in a high rainfall area like Gippsland, they'll grow.
Sorry about that, Chloe.
Rainfall.
Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's
what's the name of that one again, Chris?
This is a Leighton's green cypress, a cypress hybrid.
Cool. And
great little transformer. And you can buy little tiny ones, medium ones, and we sell right through to great big ones.
Uh-huh.
And
what kind of garden style would you use that in?
What I love about the Leighton's green is it's got a little hint of, if you look at the foliage, it's got a little hint of blue in it. Mm-hmm. And that little hint of blue, so that sort of blue-green, I believe that you could put any colour, yellow, orange, red, pink, any colour you want, and it seems to go with anything. Whereas if you go for a golden cypress, you sort of got to be careful what you put in front of it. Mm-hmm. But that particular, the Leighton's green, I'll use it as a backdrop, and I feel that I'm free to put anything I like in front of it, because that sort of blue-green seems to just go with anything you want.
Okay, cool.
So now, the next one is a Glauca pencil pine.
All good, Chloe.
And I'll get this up for you to have a look at.
Chris is just grabbing another plant.
Yep. So this is your Glauca pencil pine. Now, these are absolutely amazing. You could plant one like this one here, a little fella like this one here, and you could have this up in 2 years. You could have it up 3 meters tall, and you can use these. You can use these as a screen. Like if you plant them 90 centimeters to a meter apart, you'll end up with a tall, narrow green wall. And often when elderly people come in and they want to block out the flats next door, I'll recommend this one. And the reason why I recommend this is that with older people, it's hard to go up ladders and trim and things like that. And because these stay narrow, they're great for a fast, low maintenance thing. You won't have to get up a ladder and trim it because it'll stay nice and skinny, but you do have to plant them fairly close together. But the other great use for the Glauca pencil pine is to direct the eye. I did a garden design the other day, and they had a split driveway. They had the house this way, and then they had a tourist development straight ahead. And I said, what we'll do is we'll run rather than having signs everywhere, we'll run the Glauca pencil pines up the main driveway, ignore the side driveway, run them up the main driveway, and they'll be up, have them up 3 metres in 2 years. We'll run them up the main driveway so that people's eyes are directed to the main feature of the property, the tourist development. So they went up the main driveway to the tourist development. And so Glauca pencil pines, if you want to create a pillar, will direct people's attention. So you can make an avenue of them out to and put a statue out there, or run an avenue of them out to the lake or the pond or whatever it is. These are a great way of either making a screen or directing somebody's attention.
Cool.
Now,
what do you guys think about that one?
Now this one here is a mop top, and now a mop top. This is a Robinia mop top.
Just get you a little higher so you can see it. Yep. Go for it, Chris.
Yeah, and what it is the mop top part is grafted onto the stem of a Robinia, and a Robinia is a forestry tree, but the mop top is just a tight little bush. Now, what happens with this? If you were to plant something like this, and you were to plant, you might plant an avenue up a driveway, put a row of them across in front of a house, put a row of them down the fence. And what's amazing? These are absolutely amazing. As long as they're in well-drained soil, given a little bit of water and fertilizer, within a year, what you'll have, even within 6 months, what you'll have is the trunk will be 2 or 3 times thicker than what it is now, and the head will be 1 metre across. And within 18 months, you'll have a couple of metre across head, and you'll have a really thick trunk. And so what I've seen people with a house out in an empty paddock, looking, really naked and forlorn looking, and they've planted a row of mop tops or a little avenue of mop tops, and you go there 2 years later and the place looks enclosed by beautiful trees. It looks absolutely fabulous, and it's just amazing how quick it happens. So mop tops are one of the best trees around to make a place look established and great really, really quickly. Almost nothing else establishes itself so quickly. And then the great thing is a lot of things that establish themselves quickly then go on to become monsters. Because it's crafted, it's just a little ball on top, this will never really become an overly large tree. And with a little bit of a trim, you can keep it quite small for the rest of its life, but looking established very, very quickly. So mop top Robinia.
Cool.
Now,
I was just flashing up an example of you standing under one.
Right, that's good. Now, will I go on to the next one now, or we wait to show the example?
Yep. I have to show it off again so everyone catches it. There you go, guys. That's Chris standing under a mop top.
Now, and that's the sort of thing that you could achieve in 3 or 4 years. A really nice, mature-looking mop top, thick stem, nice big bushy head.
It wouldn't be too hard to maintain, would it?
Very easy to maintain.
Yeah, because they ball up naturally, but you just light trim, yeah?
Yeah, and
cool.
And they take wind, heat, they'll take everything, except they won't take swampy. Swampy kills them, but heat, wind, drought, you name it, full soil, mop tops thrive.
Cool. Alrighty, on to the next.
Okay, so here we have a seaside daisy. Now, I'll tell you an interesting little story. I had a lady, she's a caterer, a very capable woman, and a keen gardener, and she just built a new house on an acre block out in Sunbury. And she came in and she haggled on a price and bought 600 little tubes of seaside daisy off me. And I said, what are you going to do with 600 of them? She said, I'm going to put a board around the edge of everything. Anyway, so we dropped them off and did the deal. And I kind of forgot about it. But then one day, about maybe a year later, I went past her place, and I saw it. It just lit up. It was there. And what she'd done is she'd put seaside daisies up the driveway, round the house, round the shed. She'd put them up the garden path. She'd put them around every garden bed. She put seaside daisies around everything on an acre block.
Mm-hmm.
And at any rate, and they were all in flower. And it looked very established. It looked absolutely fabulous. And I thought, relative for an acre block, planting 600 of them as tubes was a really cheap way to go, and it absolutely transformed that property, and it looked absolutely brilliant. And the thing is that seaside daisies take a lot less trimming and care and a lot less cost than, say, English box. So it's a low cost, easy to do thing that looks absolutely fabulous. So seaside daisies, and these ones here, they're not flowering much now, but for 8 or 9 months a year, they're just covered in beautiful flowers, and you get little white ones and little pink ones sort of mixed together. So really fabulous, easy way to create a lovely border. Now, the next thing we'll look at is the evergreen alder. Now, my dad was the first person to really start growing these. He started growing and promoting these about 40 years ago. And when he did it, he promoted them as the evergreen silver birch. And they never get a white trunk, they always have a brown trunk, but they have a leaf very, very similar to a silver birch. And when they get older, they become, the branches hang a little bit like a silver birch, so they have that slightly pendulous quality that you have with a silver birch. But the amazing thing is, if you plant these, keep them well watered, and keep the grass and weeds away from the base, you'll get one of these 5 meters in 1 year. Now, it doesn't matter if it's terrible clay, it doesn't matter really on the soil conditions. All that you need is no weeds, plenty of water, maybe a little skerrick of fertilizer, and you can grow a plant like this 5 meters in a year, and it could become big and bushy. They can be trimmed. They can be trimmed into a hedge or a screen. I once saw one that had been trimmed into a shape. It was a giant topiary of a basket. It was about 5 meters tall, about 4 meters wide, and had been trimmed into this giant basket topiary. So you can do absolutely anything with them, but 5 meters in a year. So if you now, and also terrible soil, and also if the ground becomes waterlogged, these don't mind if they get flooded 2 or 3 times a year and go actually have the base go underwater and sit underwater.
Yeah.
They don't mind flooding, whereas a lot of trees don't like it. But 5 meters in a year, and then they slow down after that first year. You might get 5 meters a year, might only be up another 3 meters in the next year, and only another meter or 2 in the year after. So they slow down. They're not a really enormous tree, but fabulous to create a screen. The other thing is that they actually fix atmospheric nitrogen, and so they're like a tree clover. And so if you plant them as a screen around an orchard or around a veggie patch or even around your garden, you'll find that lawn, where gum trees and cypresses and that tend to suck up the water and the nutrients, these actually contribute nitrogen and that in around them. And lawns and plants and flowers, vegetables, orchard plants all do really, really well. And they're a great windbreak. They're actually used very extensively in Central America as a windbreak around coffee plantations. So a very useful and very, very attractive tree that can grow 5 meters in a year, 8 meters in 2 years, and have lots of uses for transforming a property.
Cool. Alrighty. Get to some of these questions. Thanks, Oliver. Thanks, Em. Thank you, Bradley. And go for it, Ralph. Go for your life. Someone asked, clay soil here in southeast suburb of Melbourne, how to improve the soil and what plants/trees suitable for this kind of soil?
Right, okay.
Kind of all like Melbourne, right?
Yeah. Have a look in clay. So one of my favourite trees at the moment, we don't have many of them, but there's a standard Nishiki willow, and it loves the clay. And makes a beautiful little feature tree. But all of anything sort of grassy, like we're going to talk about Dioides butterfly grass shortly, and Dioides butterfly grass, lovely white flowers for 6 months of the year, and with a little bit of digging, most of your roses are quite happy in the clay as well. So So clay soils can support quite a few nice and interesting plants. Any other questions?
No, not for now. Thanks, Kaz. We we get the deal. On to the next, Chris.
Okay, next one. Now this is a fine leaf Myoporum.
Mhm.
Now,
It's a ground cover.
yeah, it's a native ground cover.
Mhm.
Now I remember I was driving into work one time, and I was driving past the old Waverley Park, which was developed into a big subdivision. And along the front of it, there was a great big clay embankment, and I saw people chipping holes in the clay embankment and poking these into the holes. And I thought, gosh, that'll never work. Nothing would grow in that horrible clay embankment. At any rate, every time I went past it, I'd have a look at it. And a year, 12 or 18 months later,
Thank you.
12 or 18 months later, the whole embankment in front of Waverley Park, it was a few hundred metres long, and it was 2 metres tall, and it was horrible, jagged, rough clay. The whole embankment was covered with a beautiful sheet of beautiful green foliage, and in summer there was little white flowers which are fragrant. And ever since I've been a real advocate of this plant. If you've got a big embankment or a big area you want to cover, possibly with very poor soil, maybe poor rainfall, this is an amazing plant, and it makes a beautiful lawn that has white fragrant flowers all summer long, and really can transform an area and just turn it green. And when I use this in my garden designs, I'll often just mix a little bit of grass like a lime tuff or a Chinica or something like that. I'll put a few grasses here and there because it's very, very flat, and you might need a little point of interest. Actually, one job I did recently, I used the creeping saltbush to make some little silver mounds in it just to make it interesting. So this one here, beautiful, beautiful sheet of green, grows in almost any soil, very, very low rainfall, fabulous way to cover up a big area.
Cool.
And now the next...
So how would you, if you said you'd use that as a lawn, right?
Yeah.
How would you maintain it? Like with a lawnmower?
I reckon it does get a bit bumpy after a few years. I reckon that you'd get a brush cutter with a solid blade on it, and you might cut it every year or two, just once every year or two, and just keep it flat.
Cool.
So and then it'll throw the odd bump up, but it'll tend to stay flat.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I'll just grab something now.
Kaz asked, what is a good scene plant that the roots aren't invasive?
A good
scene plant. SCENE.
Are
you
like a great feature plant?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, screen.
Oh, screen plant.
Yeah.
Where the roots aren't invasive.
Well, that's...
Our everscreen, that's one of the ones we're going to come to today. Our everscreen ornamental pear doesn't have a bad root system, and it's evergreen, and it's very, very fast growing, but the roots tend to go down deep and not spread out and go everywhere. And it's also not a water seeker. So you find that architects and councils and governments and stuff use ornamental pears because they are a very safe root system, and the everscreen is the evergreen version, which is exclusive to us. So I think an everscreen ornamental pear.
Cool. All right. Hopefully that answers your question, Kaz. On to the next, Chris.
Yeah. Now this one here, this is a
Yep. You were saying?
What is it? Oh, this is a crow's nest poplar. At any rate, we had a customer buy some little ones like this, and he sent me a photo, and in 2 years he had them 7 meters tall with trunks like this and about 1.5 meters wide. So this is a sort of like this is a poplar that grows not too. This is a poplar that grows not too wide, but not super narrow like a Lombardy. But what it is, it doesn't get the poplar rust like the other poplars, and it stays really healthy and green and lush all through the year. And it's a real property transformer. 2 years, 7 meters tall, nice thick trunk, beautiful full shape, unbelievable. Looked like it was 10 years old. So, and all these need is they need no grass or weeds around the base, a little bit of water in summer, and they go crazy.
Awesome. Sick. What does the foliage look like?
It has a nice dark green, roundish leaf with a little tiny tail on it, sort of like that.
Awesome. Great. Alrighty, Chris is just grabbing another plant for us to look at.
Yep.
Drop us a comment and a like if you're enjoying the live. We'll answer lots more questions at the end, so fire away. What have you got here, Chris?
This is a box leaf privet.
Mhm.
At any rate, I've got a customer who comes in here occasionally, been shopping with me probably for 30 years. At any rate, he always used to buy English box. He buys different properties and does them up. And he'd always buy English box and silver birches and always haggle on the price. And but buy quite a few plants, and off he would go with his silver birches and English box, and that was his stable thing. Anyway, when I started growing box leaf privet many, many years ago, I gave him a tray of 20 box leaf privets.
Mm-hmm.
And he rather gruffly said thank you, and off he went. And then he turned up a year later, and he's a funny guy. Normally when he drives into the place, he normally bumps into one of my trolleys with his Mercedes, you know. And he came in.
Thanks for the rose.
And he said, you know them things you gave me last year? He didn't even remember what they were called. He said, give me 3,000 of them. And
must have liked them.
At any rate, so I did a delivery for him for 3,000 of them, and at any rate, a couple of years later, I was short on for cuttings, and I said, you know, those 3,000 privets you bought from me. I said, could I trim them up the next trim? Could I trim them up and get some cuttings? So I need some more cuttings. And he said, yeah, no worries. And anyway, so I went to his property, and it was a beautiful, beautiful old mansion. And he had hundreds of meters of hedge all winding around the driveways and things like that. And the hedges were that high. And he had a chap trimming them and mowing the lawns. And he had iceberg roses and peppercorn trees and a beautiful mansion. And it looked like a billionaire's property. It may well have been a billionaire's property. But the thing was that these had cost him next to nothing. And he had beautiful metre-tall hedges by the hundreds of meters everywhere. And it cost him next to nothing to do. And looked absolutely fabulous. Like the combination of the mansion, the lawns, and so simple and so cheap, and looked absolutely fabulous. So with the, and since then I've had lots and lots of customers who've bought large numbers of these and put sweeping hedges up their driveway, and you can grow these 1 metre in a year. This is what I say to people: you grow them a 1 metre hedge in a year, you grow a 2 metre hedge in 2 years, and then in one more year, so once you get your 1 metre hedge, it's there, but it's not finished looking. So you'll go a 1 metre hedge in 1 year, won't look finished, won't look fantastic, and then in one more year, you could tell somebody it was 10 years old. You know, like it has that. It's 1 year to grow it.
2 years it looks mature.
Yeah, in 2 years you've got that finished, mature look. So if you had a beautiful mansion or something like that, in 2 years you can have a hedge that looked like a 20-year-old English box hedge. You know,
wow.
Or if you wanted a 2 metre hedge, you can grow a 2 metre hedge. It will take you 2 years to get it growing, and then 1 year to get it finished. So in 3 years, you can have a 2 metre hedge that looked like it was 20 years old. So these really allow you to give a real classy look to a place very, very quickly.
Cool. Box leaf privet, yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I remember I had one person make a complaint to me about them, and what they said they grow too bloody quick. So that's the sort of complaints you get on box leaf privet.
Okay.
And they're very good. They're very good in where there's a little bit of salt, maybe a bit of wet feet, very, very hot. Like I've had lots of customers say in Shepparton and Bendigo do really, really well with them. Mm-hmm. So in slightly adverse conditions, they're very, very good.
Cool. Alrighty, we'll get to your question in a second, Kaz.
Yeah, Kaz's question.
We've got to answer Suzanne's question. Suzanne asks, when is the best time to plant a weeping tree?
A weeping tree?
Yeah.
In Melbourne, you can plant a tree 365 days a year. We're not seasonal like other countries. We have fairly mild weather, or relatively mild weather, all year round. But I think right now is a really, really good time, and if the conditions are even slightly adverse, it's better to plant a potted, one that's been. What happens is people at this time of year, most of the bare rooted ones haven't come in, and you've got ones that were bare rooted a year ago, put in a pot, grown for a year in the pot, and you'll find they've got nicely established fine roots. And you'll find if you plant those now, they'll take off beautifully, and by Christmas you'll have something absolutely fabulous. So I kind of reckon that right now is a great time for planting a potted weeping tree.
Okay, awesome. Kaz's question was, what can I plant in a narrow and long garden bed with only morning sun? We live next to the beach. What state are you in, Kaz? But yeah, any ideas?
I reckon
Welcome,
sea
Suzanne.
lavender, sea lavender, which isn't a lavender at all.
Melbourne.
It's a nice big dark green. Sea lavender alternated with seaside daisy. Both of them great coastal plants, and that would give you lovely blue flowers on the sea lavender and white and pink on the seaside daisy. So if you went and put your sea lavender about a metre apart and then popped a seaside daisy in the middle of each two sea lavenders, you could end up with a really nice coastal planting, really happy with just morning sun.
Awesome. Hopefully that helps, Kaz.
Yeah. Now, here's one of my favourite plants. This is a carpet rose.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the carpet rose, what happened is a rose breeder a few years ago went and hybridized very, and you look at the lovely bright colours here.
Mm-hmm.
A rose breeder hybridized old species roses with some modern roses, and he developed a ground cover rose that flowers for 7 months of the year, that will grow anywhere, relatively cheap to buy, and my favourite is this pink one here. This one, beautiful pink flowers, but you get property developers and they'll come in, they'll buy 200 of them and put them at the entrance of a new estate, and they'll grow there without any care or irrigation or anything and give off a brilliant show of beautiful pink flowers for 7, maybe even 8 months of the year, look absolutely fabulous and be really tough. Last for, like the chap who bred them, he's planted them in front of a couple of properties on the Monbulk Sylvan Road, and they've been thriving. There's examples of them that have been thriving there for probably somewhere between 30 and 40 years. So it's a plant, loves a trim, loves a feed, loves a bit of water, and it's a plant that looks bright, it looks exciting, and they don't look.
Not so much for this time of year.
That's trimmed back, ready for its spring growth.
But all roses look like that now,
Yeah.
don't they?
Yeah, that's right. But this is the one that gives you a brilliant colour and really transforms your property. Like I'll often, and not everybody, I find I love this lovely hot pink, and it looks really.
Say hey, T.
It's really eye catching, but what looks a lot classier is the white form of this, and that's a pure white. It's evergreen, and that's the other thing. They are evergreen. So there's a pure white one, also flowers for 7 months a year, very hardy, very easy to grow, and we supply them to Sanctuary Lakes. So I reckon they must have. They buy them 1,000 at a time, and they plant whole roundabouts of them. And there's roundabouts of them there that have been planted 10 or 15 years ago that look absolutely fabulous. And in summertime, you go there and there'll be a whole roundabout with just beautiful low white flowers everywhere. It looks really, really classy. Looks $1 million. They haven't planted any pink ones. It's all very classy, high class looking. So you can use the pink ones, and there are other colours as well. But my favourites are the hot pink and the white. The white for classiness, the pink for brightness.
Yeah.
So
and you know when the council use them, they're low maintenance and they're unkillable.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The best example is probably Sanctuary Lakes of the use of them.
Cool. Hello, T. Hello, everyone.
Now this is a really, really handy plant. It starts flowering in mid-September and flowers right through to Mother's Day. So it's a really long flower, but it's indestructible. It grows into a beautiful thick green clump. Gets covered in these white flowers with a little patch of blue and a little patch of yellow on them, and property developers will use them in roundabouts. They'll use them, along streets and things like that, along with their tree plantings. And I had one customer who bought 25,000 of them for a wedding venue and planted a couple of acres of them, and as you look at the and beautiful white weatherboard building with all palm trees and 25,000 of these, and with them in flower, it's one of the most amazing sights you'll ever see. There's probably at any one time there's probably 500,000 or 1,000,000 white flowers, right across their property. So these and they're virtually maintenance free, no diseases. They tend to blanket out. They're strong growing and they blanket out the weeds, and they flower like crazy. And they hardly any irrigation or anything like that. So a real property transformer that planted in mass look absolutely fabulous. And these can be used. These actually look great with. I just had the pink carpet rose up. These look fabulous with the pink carpet rose. I've seen plantations of these with the pink carpet roses around them. Actually, Main Street of Emerald used to be like that. So these with pink carpet roses look absolutely fabulous, and it makes a really hardy, long flowering, colourful combination.
Cool. Alrighty. Just while you're doing that, Chris, we've got a few questions.
Yep.
Aline asks, do all maple trees lose leaves in winter?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as I know, I've never come across. I've dealt with more than 100 different varieties of maples, but I've never found one that keeps its foliage through the winter.
Hopefully that helps. Chris asks, having problems with King Lake soil, plants are struggling.
I've found up in King Lake there's two sorts of soil. There's red volcanic, which they grow vegetables and potatoes and things in, and that is absolutely fabulous. And then there's heavy clays. And with the heavy clay, I think it'd be an acidic clay. You'd probably want to add lime and organic matter, and also lime and organic matter mixed through it and break it up.
Mm-hmm.
Break it up, and you should be right with it.
Cool, awesome. Hopefully that answers your question, Chris. Chris on TikTok asked, what should I do about my New Zealand red cabbage plant? It looked like it was dying, then just sprouted out of the top of the pot. Not sure whether to cut off the excess branches.
I would leave it alone for now, and then at end of September is when you start getting warm nights and it's really wanting to grow. And I would cut it back to the new shoot, maybe repot it, fertilize it, and away she goes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but not yet.
Okay, awesome. Chloe asks, which maple trees keep their foliage the longest?
Interesting question.
Maples are kind of known for being very deciduous, aren't they?
Your plain palmatum would be one of the best for holding its foliage. They hold their foliage pretty much till the end of May or first week in June. So that'll be your plain palmatum. Your plain seedling palmatum.
Hopefully that helps.
Which is when I say palmatum, that's Latin. It's your plain, basic, ungrafted Japanese maple, and it's an interesting thing. The plain Japanese maple is a really underrated tree because they're inexpensive. They're quite easy to grow, and yet they're just as beautiful as many of the grafted ones. They're really a very lovely tree, and they do hold their foliage really, really well.
Cool. Hopefully that helps, Chloe. On to the next, Chris. What do you have next?
Oh, that's
it?
That's the only one. Actually, the only other one that I'll talk about is, and I don't have one here at the moment, unfortunately, is the Everscreen, and we didn't get one, is the Everscreen ornamental pear. Now, the Everscreen, I mentioned that briefly just before, when somebody asked for a screen with a non-invasive root system. The Everscreen ornamental pear, it's grafted onto the same understock. It's got the same roots as every other ornamental pear, but it in a cold climate it'll be the last to lose its leaves, and in a mild climate like Melbourne, it'll actually keep. And if it's well watered and fertilized and happy, it'll keep its leaves all year round. So it's slightly boring in one respect, is that other ones like your Capitals and your Clevelands have fantastic red autumn colour, and then they're naked through the winter, and then the naked branches get covered in amazing white blossom in springtime. So the evergreen pear, you get none of that. You get no autumn colour. You've got leaves all through the winter. And then when the blossom comes in spring, it's lost in the foliage. But if you're the sort of person who doesn't like deciduous and you want to have a fast-growing screen, and you want to have, and they really are, the evergreen is the fastest of all the pears because it actually grows very slowly in the winter and grows quickly in the summer. So it grows all year round, whereas other ones knock off. The other ones might grow quickly for 6 months of the year, but they knock off for 6 months of the year. And the evergreen never knocks off. It's growing all the time. So if you want really fast growth, or if you want to have foliage on your pear tree all the time and have the advantage, pear trees don't have as bad a root system as many other screens, so you want to have one with a safe root system and you want an evergreen, you can't beat an evergreen ornamental pear. And I've seen people establish in 2-3 years, establish beautiful big tall screens that block out blocks of flats and things like that. And most of the people who buy evergreen pears here are actually people who bought them in a previous property, and then they come and say, oh look, I used to have these pears that don't lose their leaves, and if you've got, I bought them from here years ago and I've now moved, I now want them again. And so we have a lot of repeat buyers with the evergreen ornamental pear.
Okay, great. Be Cool, my man, asks best soil mix for canna plants. You want a
canna lilies? That'd be a canna lily, and really, I found them to be very forgiving, easygoing plants. And if you just mix a little bit of potting mix through your soil, and they love a feed, so a little bit of Osmocote's very good, or any other sort of slow release NPK fertilizer. So just mix a bit of good potting mix and a little bit of slow release fertilizer, and you'll do fabulously with it.
Cool. Hope that helps. Bootleg asked, how do you get rid of mites?
What a lot of people are doing now is that they're spraying with neem oil. And
what is neem oil?
Neem oil, well, it's from the neem tree, and a lot of the things that kill a mite are really quite toxic. So Confidor is the very serious chemical that is quite toxic that will get rid of mites. But say you want to use something less toxic, a lot of people are reporting success using neem oil. Now neem oil, we don't sell it here, but you can buy it in Bunnings, and because it's not particularly toxic, you'd use regular applications of it, and that can be quite good for getting rid of mites.
Cool.
And you'd mix neem oil up with water as per the instructions on the packet and use it as a spray.
Cool.
But it's good because it's a low toxic spray.
Awesome. Hopefully that helps, Bootleg. Chloe asks, are all ivy creepers toxic?
I think they are. I think they all have the same sort of...
Toxic in what way?
If you were to eat them.
Oh,
eat
right.
them. And also, also, a lot of people get rashes or skin irritations from handling them because they are a bit toxic, and they're probably toxic for pets and things like that. But in saying that, I've worked in heaps of gardens, worked around ivy a lot, and people don't it doesn't taste too good. People don't eat it. It's not a great danger or a great problem. I've had all sorts of pets, cats, rabbits, dogs, all sorts of things, and heaps of ivy. I was brought up in an area where ivy grew wild, and although it's toxic, unless you've got some sort of mixed up kind of animal that wants to eat it, I've had goats, I've had cows, I've had everything in the ivy, and most things are sensible and they don't eat it. There's some natural instinctive thing. So I wouldn't be particularly afraid of having ivy. And I use in my landscapes, I will use ivy. I love the Pittsburgh ivy and the Canary Island ivy. And the Canary Island ivy,
you get rashes from Canary Island?
Too much exposure, yes, you will. Yeah. So, but I don't handle it that much, and it doesn't really cause a problem to me. But Canary Island ivy is another great thing. If you want to cover an embankment, like a really tough embankment, you plant it at the bottom and it creeps up and covers it really quickly and nicely. So Canary Island ivy is a very, very...
What about Boston as well?
Boston ivy is not an ivy, it's actually a grape.
Okay.
I've actually been picking them, and you're picking little tiny purple grapes recently. And so Boston ivy, although they call it an ivy, it's only in a colloquial sense. It's not a ivy is hedera, is the Latin name for ivy. So all of your Canariensis, it's hedera canariensis, and so you have so. Although people say, and a lot of people say, oh, I don't like ivy, so I won't have a Boston ivy. But Boston ivy is actually more of a grape than it is an ivy. It actually has little purple grapes on it, and they have little pips in it, just like your normal grapes, and they're edible. Like I'll chew on them while I'm picking them, and so your Boston ivy is not really an ivy. It's only an ivy by name, not by reality.
Because it looks similar, kind of thing.
Because it sticks to the wall, I think.
Okay, cool.
Same as an ordinary ivy, but it's deciduous, and it actually has little purple grapes on it. And I wouldn't be eating anything off an actual ivy, whereas I'll eat the seed from the Boston ivy.
All right, there you go. Wouldn't recommend it, but they are slightly toxic. Sanju asks, good cheap plants to cover a colorbond fence fast. Creepers ?
Okay. Fastest thing is Virginia creeper. Now, Virginia creeper, I reckon it's twice the speed of a Boston ivy. We had one customer who sent in photos of the growth rate, and in a couple of months, she had it grow way more than a metre up a fence. And just in a couple of months. I've never seen anything like it before. So your Virginia creeper, not quite as pretty as a Boston ivy, but probably twice the speed. So if you really want to cover something quick, Virginia creeper, Boston ivy, or actually, let's say Virginia creeper, let's say very, very quick, Boston ivy, very quick, and then the next thing would be the Ficus pumila, which is still quick. So super quick would be your Virginia creeper. But a lot of people still go for the Ficus pumila because the Ficus pumila is evergreen, whereas your Boston ivy and your Virginia creeper are both deciduous. But I actually enjoy the Boston ivy. I love the red autumn colour, and I don't mind the look of it when it's naked in the winter. Like it still sort of covers the wall, you know?
Yeah. Cool. All right. Hope that helps, Sanju. Tim T asked, I'm on the mid-north coast of New South Wales near the beach. I have a narrow spot near a fence, but want to block out the neighbours. Which ornamental pair would be best?
Absolutely everscreen.
Okay.
I've grown the everscreen up on the Gold Coast, and where the normal pairs peter out after a couple of years, the everscreen thrives.
All right. There you go, Tim. You got a solid answer. All right. Bootleg asked, are fiddle leaf figs hard to care for? Mine drops off a lot of leaves. Can you propagate them?
They're hard to propagate, and unless you live in Cairns, they're bloody hard to grow.
Yeah.
Like I'm a nurseryman, and I took one home and I was real nervous.
Yeah. I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, and even as a nurseryman, I think they're if you ain't got the right conditions, you're going to have trouble, you know?
Yeah, because they're very temperamental, aren't they?
Very.
Yeah.
Very, very temperamental. They don't want too little water. They don't want too much water. They don't want too little light, too much hot, too much cold.
Because where are they originally from? They're from the forest floor, under canopies, and in moist conditions, yeah?
Yeah, and where I've seen them was I actually did a bit of gardening when I was young up in Mackay. And I saw them growing, and that's where I first saw them. And I saw great big ones in people's gardens, and they were the most beautiful trees I've ever seen. Absolutely, I just fell in love with them. And up there, they just grow like weeds.
Yeah. All right. So if you don't have the good conditions, don't bother.
Yeah.
We'd say. Chris, Tim, Sanju, you're welcome. Cake Hamster said, "God bless." X said, "Hello, hello."
Hello.
Brooke asked, will Pittosarum grow well in clay soil? Thank you. She's from Melbourne.
Okay. Yes, you see lots of good ones in clay soil, but not super heavy clay or swampy clay. And I always, when people have got clay soil, I tell them to do a bit of work. Dig a nice big hole, mix a bit of potting mix through it, plant them nice and high in the hole. And most of all, when you're planting Pittosarum, do not tease the roots. Just wet them before you plant them, pull them out and put them in like that.
All right, cool. She said she's trying to block out neighbours in a courtyard with a smallish fence garden bed.
You know, you might find boxleaf privet could be better for that job.
Okay.
They have a similar leaf and texture, but a different colour to you, and much hardier and easier to grow than your Pittosporum.
Okay. There you go. Luna asked, how, I like this one. How do you know this much about plants? Did you have a course, or is your knowledge self-taught? Far away.
Okay, how I know so much is that I was brought up at Mount Dandenong, and when I was a kid, everybody was either a berry farmer, or they had a little nursery, or they were rich and they had a big garden, and I and my father had a flower farm. He was an accountant, but he'd bought a flower farm almost by accident. And to pay the mortgage, he had to pick the flowers, and he gradually got into it, and he became a really great horticulturalist. By the time I was leaving high school, he was growing 1 million plants a year and selling them. So I was brought up helping. We used to help the neighbours and things like that. So I was brought up, and I went and got myself a paying garden job when I was 7, and I worked in that garden. It was a very good garden. I worked there every Saturday till I was 17. So I've had basic, massive exposure to all different aspects of horticulture. And then as I left school and went to work, I found that I was kind of a little bit unemployable. So I ended up working mostly for myself, and I've always been growing plants, selling plants, harvesting things from plants, working as a contractor with plants, landscaping, gardening, retailing plants, mail ordering plants, tissue culturing plants, collecting seeds and selling plant seeds all over the world. So I've had, and I tend to work 6 or 7 days a week. So I actually think that I've got the experience of a 90-year-old, even though I'm only 67. So because I've worked so many hours and days, and the reason why I can do that is I actually love horticulture in the way that somebody might love surfing or something like that.
Cool. And when you say you've done things with plants all over the world, what do you mean by that, Chris?
Oh, well, I've tissue cultured plants and sent them all over the world. I've actually worked quite a bit in California, and I've collected seeds and sold them all over the world and dealt with different people. And I've also purchased plants from all over the world and dealt with different people with different horticultural things all around the world. And I brought plants to Australia. Like I studied forestry with the Chinese Academy of Forestry for a little while, and then I brought some Chinese forestry trees to Australia and established them in Australia. They were Paulownia, and I've established, and I see Paulownias all over the place. So it was really me that got them going here. So I've always been doing something horticultural.
Cool. Alrighty, I think that's everything.
And I come from a horticultural family. My brother my brother James has probably one of the best succulent collections. He has maybe 1,000 different sorts of succulents. He would have one of the best succulent collections in the world. And the funny thing is, I'm probably and my mum is a great horticulturalist, so I'm probably not the best horticulturalist in my family, but I'm kind of the best known horticulturalist. And often I'll have to go to my mum or go to my brother or go to other people who are even better than me and get a bit of advice.
You're the best spokesperson of horticulture,
yeah, I'm sort of out there. I'm out there in the public eye, but there's people that I then lean on for information as well. So there's people that know more than me.
Interesting. All right. Bootleg asked, best large indoor plants that aren't the classics. So he was asking about the fiddle leaf.
Yeah, okay. So the hardest wearing, like sometimes you'll get a hotel and they'll want some great big plants, and nobody's harder on a plant than a hotel. There'll be cigarette butts going in around them, and there'll be, it's terrible what happens to plants in hotels. And I found the most successful is the giant bird of paradise. A giant bird of paradise look tropical, they look fabulous, and I've seen them tortured and really had a tough time, nice big ones, in hotels, and really do well.
Cool. All right. I think that's all we have time for today, guys. You're welcome, Luna. All right. One last one. Schoonerville asks, best hedge to hide front wall that is low maintenance and doesn't require constant cutting back.
Which one is it?
Best hedge.
Yeah,
to hide front wall that is low maintenance and doesn't require constant cutting back. We'll get to you as well.
Okay, the plant that doesn't require constant cutting back is probably something a little bit slow growing. So the thing something like an Escallonia ovei would probably be one of the best. Escallonia ovei have beautiful white flowers, lovely dark green glossy foliage, and under ideal conditions, they don't grow more than about 2 meters. So if you want to hold something around 1.2, 1.4, 1.5, your Escallonia ovea is really good and low maintenance to hide something, and it's a little bit slower growing than something like a Petunia or a Ficus, but it is a lot less maintenance.
Cool.
And a beautiful thing too, beautiful and a bit unusual.
Cool. All right. Wylon said, "What's the best fertilizer for hooter plants?"
Which plants?
Hooter plants.
Hooter, I don't know.
Hooter. What's a hooter plant, Wylon? Happy to help, bootleg.
But
Thank you for joining. You too.
I like to have a single solution fertilizer.
Yeah.
And 99% of all the plants that I would grow, and I actually keep a couple of 100,000 plants here, and I use Osmocote or Nutricote on 99% of the couple of 100,000 plants that I've got here, and I've got all different sorts, and that is a very safe fertilizer.
Rightio. There you go. Osmocote for everything. And if you know an Osmocote rep, let us know. Alrighty, guys. That's all the time we have for today. Catch you on the next one, and thanks for joining. Thanks for all the likes.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.